Hi peeps! Today's vocabulary word is flattened, as in a flattened scale degree, like in a minor scale. This is for a beginning choir class. With a voice, it's a little bit more difficult than with an instrument. On an instrument, you can just show and feel, and you're physically, mechanically creating the flattened scale degree. But with the voice, you have to hear the voice, the note you want inside your head, and then you have to mechanically adjust your vocal cords, your tongue, your soft palate, blah, 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 to make the new note happen. So it's kind of tricky because it's invisible and happens inside your body. So this is going to be a new concept for them. The prior knowledge is that we've spent a significant amount of time singing the major scale as a base for comparison. Method 1. I'm going to call it the let's talk method. I think that's what it is. I would have prior to today called it listening, describing, and discovery, but that's just my own made up thing. In this method, I would say, today I'm going to introduce you to a new kind of note. I'm going to play it for you and raise your hand, and I want you to describe the new note in the context of the major scale we've been singing. So I'll play the scale with the minor third, the flattened scale degree. I'm not going to tell them what it is. And students raise their hand and use descriptive words to describe how it sounds. And a student scribe will write the words on the board, creating a word bank for the class. So everyone can see the words and their spelling and etc. Then I would isolate the original tone and the flattened tone, not telling them what it's called, and play the original tone, new tone, new original tone, new tone. And I would ask them if they can identify if the new note is lower or higher. That's kind of the key. If they can reveal that it's lower, then I'll tell them that what the real music word is, which is that it's flattened, it's a flattened tone, and I would show like a pushing down or flattening motion with my hands. The pros of this method are that they get to hear the new note first and experience how it feels and describe it, so it's a very good English language development integration. And they're listening to their classmates describe it instead of me. I'm not telling them this is going to sound spooky or whatever. They're going to practice their descriptive words, and they're going to have a word bank to look at as they're then again at the end hearing the flattened scale degree again, reinforcing the descriptive words. So it's going to make the vocabulary more meaningful. The cons would be that the lowered nature of the flattened scale degree, it might not be apparent to the listener. They might just be able to tell, yeah, it's different, but whether they can hear if it's low or higher, they may not be able to do that. Method 2, I would have called it kinesthetic, responding, and reinforcing, but I think it's the same as the teach what is teachable method. This method, I would have the group stand up and listen to whatever scale I play, but it's going to be a major scale, which is what they're familiar with, and I'll play it on repeat, la 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 la, keep going. And then I'll say, when you hear a scale with a different new note in it, squat down and hold the squat until you hear the original scale again. And then I would switch to a minor scale with a flattened third scale degree. La 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 da 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 da. And then they would squat down and I would keep going back and forth until I could see that every kid was responding physically to the minor scale and the major scale. Then they could sit down and I'll tell them what the music word is, the flattened tone for that. And they've already made a physical kinesthetic association with the lowering of the flattened tone without them even knowing that it was a lowered note. So I think that's going to be very helpful. The pros of this is it's like very fun. I did this with my kids. They loved it. It's kinesthetic, so it reaches those learners which are the most ignored learners in general. Students are literally feeling the lowering, so that's good. The cons are it's like too silly and the kids are more focused on the movement than on the vocabulary, or they're just copying their classmates and they're just kind of responding again to the difference between the note, but not that they're maybe making the connection that they're lowering themselves because the note is lowered. That's still maybe a little elusive. Third and final method involves a baseball and a fake marshmallow, because I don't have any real marshmallows, but pretend this is a real marshmallow. I would call this like analogies and explain first, pique interest, and then listen as the last culminating event, which I think is like the 2-for-1 immersion method in our reading this week. I would begin by referring to the major scale that we've been working with and compare it to the major leagues in baseball and explain that just like in baseball, there's also a minor league in music. At my school, we have an incredibly successful and very well respected and super supported baseball and softball team, so it's a kind of a good thing to leverage in my particular situation. And the kids are pretty excited about how good our team is, so that's good. So I would then say this marshmallow is like the notes we've been singing and the major leagues. And then I would take the baseball and I would set it on top of the marshmallow and watch the marshmallow kind of collapse. And I would be like, this note now is in the minor leagues. They have to work their way up to the major leagues, just like you do in real baseball. And then I could show them on the visual of, like, say, a piano keyboard, a poster, maybe a picture of a piano keyboard. I could just show them the, a picture of how you flatten the note on the keyboard, so that it would be a visual example of it. And they could literally see that the interval, the distance between do, which is home base that we've been singing for a long time, and the minor interval is smaller, is physically smaller, and the major interval is larger. Plus you have to work your way up from the minor leagues to the major leagues. So it kind of would reinforce it on a few different levels. Then at the end, I would be like, are you ready to hear the minor league scale with the flattened note? I'd make sure that the baseball was down on the marshmallow, was squished, so they would associate that. I would play it on the piano or this little set of funny little bells that I have, and then we could sing the two scales alternately. I could check for understanding by listening to them and then sing them, and then have them sing it without me. So it would actually, one of the pros would be that I would be able to actually do a formative or even formal assessment, because they would at the very end be able to sing it without me, so that would be kind of good. Another pro would be that you're visually, showing the note, and it's kind of something funny, and then the baseball is something kind of familiar to them and interesting. It's good to link sports and music because they're actually unbelievably similar, even though for some reason we think of them as opposite things, like jocks and nerdy musicians, which doesn't really make sense. The cons are it really leaves out the kinesthetic learners, because they'd basically just be sitting and listening the whole time, and it also leaves out kids who are not interested in sports. Okay, that's your music lesson for the day. Bye, peeps.